nobody mentioned how men were holding people down or whatever, right? And it's like when women will finally realize, and I think I have my top 3 things, not it, none of your business, I'm bored. I think the fourth one is you're not the boss of me, right?
Right.
You're not the boss of who I am at the end of the day. Like my self-esteem is not dependent on your opinion of me. I'm in charge of my self-worth and my self-esteem.
Hey everybody, welcome to Q the Next Leader. I'm your host, Angela Rizzo, Chief Marketing Officer of VinQ. I'm really excited today because we want to continue this celebration of Women's History Month, and I have asked 4 powerhouse women to join us today for a conversation around automotive, around career development, about just about anything. So let me introduce my panel today. We've got Robin Wilson and Shasta Haddock from Epic BDC, and Shasta also, Robin is the CEO, also of SCP Agency, and then Shasta is the Chief Operations Officer. Shasta is also, as she's part of duo of Chicks in Charge, and she's doing amazing things in the industry. So we're going to talk about that. And then we have Stacey Stewart, Vice President of NCM, joining us from way out there in Canada. We'll talk about that in a minute, Stacey, in terms of where you're at, and hear some insights from you. And then someone that I just met recently that I want to adopt as my daughter because she's just the sweetest, most amazing individual I have ever met. Ashley Negron, Office Manager at Roper Kia down there in Joplin, Missouri. Welcome, everybody, to the Q the Next Leader podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello. Great to see everybody. So look, I'm going to change the view to the speaker view. And then I'm going to start off the questions. Let's just get right into it, okay? So Stacey, can you share a specific experience or a moment that really solidified your passion for the automotive industry and really shaped your career trajectory? Sorry about that.
It's all good. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. One particular experience occurred when I was actually sitting in a training room with a bunch of dealers. And what I found really interesting was the fact that they were really talking about how do they, have this impact on their clients and on their community. And it was probably the first time that I'd ever really heard that kind of language coming from a car dealer, and just, how do we make things better? How do we sustain our community? How do we help? So really hearing the firsthand dedication, about improving the overall experience, as well as trying to make a difference in their communities, it kind of ignited a bit of a fire in me. So that was really the moment, I think, when I really reinforced my commitment to working in the auto sector and striving to also try and make an impact, the same as the dealers were trying to do.
I love it. I love it. I've only been in the automotive industry for a few years, and I feel like I've been here for a long time. But what I find striking is just the people. Everyone that I've met has just been so amazing, including, present company included. So that's great. And I was joking with you when I introduced you about your location. Why don't you tell the audience where you live and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in a province in Canada called New Brunswick, in a small town named Moncton. Love it. For those who are unaware, I do live in a time zone that does not exist in the US. I'm in Atlantic time. So that's always a ton of fun to try and explain that to people. My mom and dad were originally from here. Although I was not born here or raised, we all kind of moved back as mom and dad did after retirement. So actually, my brothers and sisters, we all moved back here as well. But hard to leave now because I'm 20 minutes from the ocean and 20 minutes from the forest. It's a pretty sweet outside, outdoor life. So I think we're going to stay.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And, this is exciting to me because this is my first international Q the Next Leader podcast. So now I'm feeling worldwide right now. So thank you, Stacey. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And Angela, so Angela, auto years are the same as dog years. So you go, I haven't been in here very long. They're like 7 years for every year.
Exactly. That's what it feels like. But but in a good way. Sometimes you're in a place where 7 years is like, oh my God, it's been 7 years. It feels like 20. Here, it's like, oh my goodness, it's been 2 years. And I feel like I've been this happy and fulfilled for a long time. So, Robin, let's talk about your unique perspectives and where you see, like, how do where okay, let me just back up. I got all excited, got ahead of myself. In your opinion, what unique perspectives or strengths do women bring to the workplace and to the industry?
Well, I've seen it in the dealership level, and I've even seen it like in the vendor world as well. And it's one word, right? It's trust. And whether it's deserved or earned or not, it's like it's assumed that we are trustworthy, right? If you put a woman manager in a finance office, like she sells more back end product, right? They assume that what she's telling them they need it, by God. And if you put a man in that position, like he's having to earn that trust over and over again. And I think there are times whenever we just get the grace of trust right off the bat, whether it's ever been earned or not. And I think that's probably something on the sales side of it that we really bring to it. But on the management and the operations side of it, I think that women in general bring the ability to listen more and to kind of be more perceptive as to what's going on in the environment. There's times whenever, like even here, like we can walk through here and I can just feel an energy shift going on. And I'm like, what's going on with so-and-so? Whereas some of my male managers would be like, what are you talking about? They're on time. They did blah, blah, blah. But your intuition kicks in and goes, something's just a little bit off with them. And that helps us to be able to manage humans better.
I love it. I love that perspective. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I think there's a lot of truth in that it's almost like for a woman, the trust is assumed, but for the man, the trust is earned. And then,
right.
So it's up to us to lose, right?
Right. For sure.
Love it. Love it. So, so Ashley, do you have specific initiatives or programs that dealerships can implement, dealerships or companies can implement that can foster like the next generation of women in the auto industry? Can you give us some examples of your thinking here?
Yeah, so I think it's important to think about creating a training environment and raising your own people up. And so that starts from having the right people in the right seats on the bus. And you have to empower them to know that they are capable, they bring things to the table. And so how do we push everyone forward, but even women more specifically? So I think some of that starts with, hiring from within. If you spot an employee who is amazing and impressive, you need to invest in them, help them grow in that leadership. It looks like things even as simple as like book club together. Like, how are we growing as a whole human, right? How are we doing that? And so we are creating initiatives within our sales staff. I just started a book club about 6 weeks ago with my girls here in the office. And so we're reading James Clear's Atomic Habits, and I'm watching as they're growing and they're learning and they're stepping into things they never even thought possible, or things that they didn't know that they needed to work on. And so that's been a really cool thing. It's bringing that intentionality. So I think it's also teaching them like, hey, we see something in you. It's someone seeing something in you, and then bringing that best part out of you. And so I don't know if it's necessarily like a specific initiative or program, just as much as like being intentional with leadership training and in helping them to grow to be the best version of themselves.
That is so powerful, because I think about my career, and early in my career, I mean, I could have gone two ways, right? I could be homeless right now, or I could be doing what I'm doing. And the reason I'm not homeless is because I had somebody who really believed in me, who really helped me like grow, because you don't have all the tools when you're first starting out early
Right.
in your career, right? And so that is just so powerful. And to reflect back on that, I really have to thank a handful of people that were like mentors and people that saw something in me. And I think that we have to pay that back to the people that we work with, right? Whether they report to us or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been fun to invest in and to see that in Emily, and to get to help come alongside her and help grow her as a leader. And now watch her take these massive steps to lead a service department full of men, right? Like, she's again in this space that is not typically male dominated. She actually told me a story the other day about a customer who was like, well, I want to talk to somebody who's not a woman. She's like, sir, I have been doing this for a long time. Give me an opportunity to show you that I know what I'm talking about. And she won him over by the end of the conversation. Now, it was difficult, but she held her own ground and wasn't going to give that up. But she said, like 6 months ago, I probably would have lost control of my emotions and got super frustrated at him. And this conversation would have gone nowhere fast. But because of the training and the things that we have been doing, she got to call me and go, oh my gosh, I just won the world. Like, she was so excited when she got done with that conversation. But it's because of the growth that we've been talking about. And it's been on those challenges of how do we as women, prove ourselves? And she's doing an incredible job of that. And so I love nothing more than that phone call at 7:00 at night going, I just did it. I love that excitement.
Robin, I think that you might have a comment.
Yeah. So one of the things, and Shasta can attest to this too, like I can tell you that most of our team are like our employees are just not natural readers, right? Like I'm an avid reader, like I'm constantly in something. And so, but making my executive leadership team go through book club as well has been so pivotal for us. And there's like one book that we go through it seems like every year. And it's funny because I have to use a different highlighter every year when I go through it because something different sticks out to me than it did the year before. And we're going back through it right now. But I think recently, like one of the most impactful books we went through was The Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, right? Mm-hmm. And like everybody resonated with a different chapter. And I was just shocked, like when Shasta would go, this one like really hit home with me. And Jess would be like, this one right here, this chapter right here just killed me. And so I think it's so important that as leaders that we're taking our team through the things that we want them to learn. We just can't assume that they'll learn it. I mean, I made my team go through book club just like Ashley did. Like they didn't want to at first. They were resistant to read their chapter before we came every week, right? But then at the end of it, then I see Shasta going, I'm going to lead a book club with the second level of managers. I'm going to make sure that like every time they have a problem, something's going on, and she's like, she'll identify that's an absence of trust right there. They need to get back into the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And so when you see it coming back and you've equipped them with the tools to be able to lead instead of just assuming that they're going to go do it themselves.
I love it. I love it. And, that kind of falls into the next question I wanted to ask Shasta about, thinking about how you personally prioritize your professional development and your continued learning. Are there strategies or habits that you use and you formed to build your career?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that for me, I'm very easily distracted, I think is the best way to say it. I have ADHD and I can get derailed very quickly. And so one of the things for me is that I have to schedule it. It has to be every week. I know that I'm doing this from this time to that time, whether that is reading a book, whether it's listening to a new podcast and being somewhere where I can take notes. And then also, like Robin said, doing the book clubs. I do better with an accountability partner because of how easily distracted I am. I won't hold myself accountable. And so if I have somebody else doing with me, I don't want to let them down. I'm a people pleaser. And so I will continue to do it just so I don't let them down. And I think I'm probably not alone in the world in that there's other people out there that will stick to something better if they have a partner to go through it with and even to bounce ideas off of.
Well, I love it. And I would love for you guys, when we're done with this podcast, to shoot over your book recommendations. Like if you've got a top 3, we'll include them with the podcast and encourage people to start book clubs. I might start one here at VinQ with make it a cross-functional one with the performance team and the project managers so that we just get all the women together. And maybe we open it up to anyone.
Yeah, and the 5 dysfunctions of a team is really good if you're going across several different departments because there are so many different personality types that it takes to run, whether it's the dev team or it's the marketing or sales team or the management team, and it kind of hits everybody, I believe.
Yeah,
and Ashley, you guys have been through it too, right?
Yeah, we've done that one, and then we just did his Working Genius book, and that is a whole nother level. And I can tell you, it changed my working relationship with 2 managers in specifically that used to frustrate the ever loving daylights out of me. And I learned their Working Genius, and I went, oh, good. Okay, we got this. We're good. And now we have this like common language together, and we know what each other's talking about. And it's the limitations are not an excuse, but they've also learned like, hey, I need to do better in this because this frustrates so and so. And these are things that I need to work on. And it's really helped our communication across all of our departments on our management team. So yes, highly recommend anything Patrick Lencioni, really.
So on my desk today is actually his latest one, The Advantage.
Oh, I don't have that
I
one.
don't have that one. I'll have to
It's
look that one up.
It's fabulous.
I'm over here taking notes. Like,
Love it.
Yeah, I agree with Ashley. We being part of a SaaS division of a professional services firm, really getting people into a book club and talking about a common language has been huge for us. Because sometimes we found that we were saying the same thing, but the vocabulary was different. So we were, looking at each other and not really understanding. So, we have a book club going on here as well. And I think it's fantastic. It sounds like we have all of that in common.
I love it. I think it's a great way to, again, I'll echo what you all have said, get people on the same page, get them discussing things that really they're discussing the book, but then they talk about kind of the dysfunction at work. Like I like to say, we put the fun in dysfunction, right? But how do we like work through some of these things? Because we're all different. We all have different triggers and different things. And we just need to learn to kind of, work together. And kind of on that vein, I would say, Stacey, I'd like to direct a question to you about, when you think about the opportunities for women to continue to inspire each other. We just came from an event on March 6th. We were in Kansas City, and you were all there and you all participated. And I left that event feeling so excited and inspired. We had 65 people, mostly women. We had great speakers. You guys were all on a panel. Ashley, you were the keynote. And, we're starting this movement. And how do we, what are some of the opportunities for women to keep inspiring and uniting each other in automotive? What are some other things we can be doing together?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity, by the way, to sit on that panel. That was the most fun. And thankfully, I'm not sitting beside Robin this time. For the listeners that were there, they will understand. I think we can inspire just by showing up. I hear so many times like, at NCM, if you don't mind me talking about us for just a moment, we have women in leadership roles, in senior leadership roles, and that really encourages other women. They're going, there is a place for me. So I think that, as more women enter the auto industry, our diverse perspectives and our approaches as well, because we're pretty innovative, are going to bring more people in, and we're going to continue to, inspire and unite each other. Also, I think I'm a huge proponent of mentorship programs. I think, identify somebody. I think, Ashley, you were talking about that. I love that idea. Look at somebody who has the hunger and, and the skills and bring them along with you and mentor them and really kind of show them the ropes. I was very fortunate that I had some great mentors, very early in my career. I attribute some of my success to them. And networking opportunities like March 6th in Kansas City. I think, we can empower each other and just keep paving the way. It's our mandate. It's our responsibility to just continue to pave the way for future generations. If you look at some of the opportunities in the market, I think the one that I love the most talking about is EVs. Okay, so if you look at EVs and you look at the service department, how, we can start looking at technicians differently now. We all have this idea in our mind, a tech, and actually two of my son-in-laws are techs, and they're big and they're brawn and, and they walk around and, they always need that soap. But now it's more about creativity. Oh, their fingernails. But, it's more about creativity now and tech savvy and, computer minded and just really, really understanding that. So why can't we look at how we look at technicians right now as like the best example and say, women fit that mold now. But I think that the dealers also need to make sure that they have a place. Make sure that, when you have female technicians, they don't have to go change in the washrooms. They need to have their own place at the table as well as, locker rooms and so on. But I think we got this. I think, together we can absolutely drive this for everyone.
It's so interesting that you brought that up because we brought up EVs in particular. So I drive an EV. I've had one for oh gosh, almost 6 years, and I just upgraded to a BMW, an i4. And my genius, the person who's my genius, who taught me how to use the car, is like this 25-year-old woman who was at our event, who won the big Michael Kors
Oh,
bag.
yeah, yeah,
Love her.
Right? Do you remember her? So
Mhm.
she's like
So sweet.
adorable, but she's like the person that everybody goes to learn how to use their EV. Perfect point. Perfect way to accentuate that point that you just made, Stacey. And I love her. I call her all the time. Like, I actually, when I picked up the car, I only had an hour, and she's like, well, just come back anytime. I'm here all the time. So, there's so many opportunities for women in automotive. We don't need to see it as a man's world. It's our world, right?
right.
It's there for the taking. So it's very exciting. So Robin and Shasta, maybe you both can think about, you reflect on your journeys on how you got where you are today. Was there some, what was the most impactful advice that you have received that helped you navigate the automotive industry or your career in general?
So for me, I think, so going back to, I believe we work in an industry of distrust. It's just been decades of like this whole phenomenon of distrust. And I think there's a gap, right? So, a lot of times people listen to solve, right? So they're just listening for enough so that they can get enough data from you to solve your problem, right? And I have enough masculine energy in myself that I'm a solver as well. So whenever people are like talking to me, I really kind of have to stop and ask them and go, am I just listening to listen, or am I listening to help solve you? Because I have to use a whole different part of my brain for that. And so I think a lot of the times that distrust comes from the fact that we're not listening to understand, we're listening to solve. And so the best piece of advice that I ever heard was not given to me, it was given to a man, or it was a piece of advice I gave to a man and went, look, sometimes I don't need you to solve my problem. I just need you to listen to understand. And if we could take that and move that into the automotive industry, and now we're not just going through the check mark of, like, if we're selling them a vehicle, we're going through the check mark of, well, I think they probably have a 620 credit score. So this. I think that they have a family of four, so they probably need a minivan. And they're not listening to understand the way that vehicle is going to be used. Or even on the service lane of, listen, I am having fear right now because my vehicle is acting this way. And they're not wanting you to tell you a bunch of technical garbage. They're wanting you to, first of all, assuage their fears and let them know that car is going to go pick their kids up from school today, and they're going to be okay. That, yes, I see that you have a check engine light, but I promise you it's a very minor thing right now. Don't worry about it for right now. We have your piece ordered. You can rest easy that your kids are going to get picked up. So I think the listening portion of it is probably the best piece of advice, is that if we could become more of that, of what we would want our aunts, uncles, our elderly people to be treated, how would we want them to be listened to when they're at the dealership, or when they're in the service lane, or whenever they're at any exchange with the automotive industry at all. So to me, that's probably, I think, the number one thing. And it's a big lesson for me because, like I said, I'm a solver. So, Shasta?
So it's funny enough because it's the tagline to our podcast, and it's something that it came together piece by piece. There was one phrase that was just, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, that kind of just stuck out to me. And then the more that that was in front of my face every day and in front of my mind, I added to it. And so now it's in a world where you can be anything, be kind, because you never know what battles others are facing. So when you go out into the world this week, remember to light it up. And that's because you yourself have the impact to touch so many people's lives if you impact them positively versus negatively. And so it's none of my business why somebody else is having a bad day and they choose to be crappy. If I can turn that around and be kind to them, I can turn that around for them and anybody else they would be speaking to. And it all starts with one person. So that's
it's I love it. I find that to be very true, especially like if I have a bad day for some reason and somebody's really nice to me, it completely turns my whole day around. But if I come in all happy and somebody's mean to me, or rude, or I get flipped off in the car or something, then it affects my day. So if everybody could just be a little more kind, I think you're right. I think that would make a huge difference.
We use, oh, Robin.
No. I was just
Okay.
thinking that we're so reluctant to give praise and compliments to people because it is none of my business. I'm going to tell you the day that we left the event at NCM, the 6th, right? And Jess and I had dropped Gary off at the airport, and then I told him, like, okay, you're gonna have to stop somewhere along the way. I'm going to have to jump into a convenience store somewhere, right? And I'm walking through, my brain is still on the event and Gary and all the things. I'm not even really thinking, I'm just going through the motions. And this lovely woman, this lovely Black woman just stops me and she goes, all of this, oh girl, yes. And like, that's all she said. And I was just like, I just walked out like on cloud. I didn't know her. I would never talk to her again. Right. And so to one of those things, like, to be kind, like she couldn't know that if there was anything on my mind or whatever, but it's like, she didn't hold back her praise. And I think we do that because we're afraid of crossing into somebody's boundary or whatever. But it's like, in a world where you can be kind, sometimes it isn't just responding kindly, it's being the first person to be kind.
Be kind. Yeah. We use the phrase of leaving people better than you found them. So it's acknowledging, it's seeing people. When I do go to the grocery store and don't use Walmart pickup, I have started to make myself actually go through the regular line to acknowledge them, to look at their name tag, use their name, show them that they're seen in a day. And so just those little things, or helping resolve a customer issue and leaving them better than I found them. I may not have solved their problem the way they wanted it done, but we reached a place of resolution, right? And so all the time, my girls are going to hear me say, leave them better than you found them. Yeah, you don't know what battle that people are facing in a day. And so how do we, all of those same kind of things, that's just our little slightly different phrasing, but super helpful.
I love it. Kind of to follow on to that, if you think about like a really memorable experience where you felt particularly proud or fulfilled, like in your role. Ashley, while I've got you here, is there something that kind of comes to mind in terms of the significance of that and why that affected you personally or professionally?
Yeah, so every year Roper Kia awards an Employee of the Year to one standout employee. And most of the time people have been there for a long time or have had to do something quite crazy to earn that. And sometimes people are here for a long time and never earn it. I was very honored and humbled to have received that award in 2019. So just over a year after coming on board at Kia. And because of my background and the things I came out of, I went, oh, somebody does see me. It was acknowledging, like, hey, you are seen, you are valued, we love what you bring to the table. And so I think it's moments like that when we, again, leave people better than we found them. We are kind. We acknowledge the things that we see in our employees, in each other. We encourage that because that gave me the confidence to continue to do the job that I was still honestly learning how to do at that point. And so how do we keep continually pushing people along? And it's that encouragement. And it was like, oh, hey, Mr. Frost does trust me to do this big job within the dealership and sees that and acknowledges that. And so, yeah, that was a pretty cool experience.
I love it. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Shasta, do you have anything to add to that question?
So I think that for me personally, I don't know why, and it could be because and we talked about this at the event, but I live in a shadow. I live in her shadow.
Yeah.
She doesn't create it for me, but I always feel like I have to prove something that maybe I don't. And so I kind of have this, I don't belong type of feeling sometimes, but then like this past year, so we are almost,
so like imposter syndrome,
kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're almost at the 1 year mark of starting the Chicks in Charge. Can't believe it hasn't been a year yet, but we're very close. It's in about a week and a half. So we never knew the impact or reach that was going to have. We knew the goal that we set out when we started it. We knew that we wanted to impact young people's lives, specifically young women, and let them know, hey, you do matter. And we want you to be as equipped in your arsenal as possible when it comes to knowing how to do your job, connecting you with the right people. And so you know, we don't have any big sponsors. We don't put a lot of money into it by any means. You know, we just share on social media and hope that maybe it impacts somebody. So when we went to NADA this year, the first day that we were there, it was just Jess and I before Robin and Bev got in, and we claimed that as our Chicks in Charge Day. We went in a pink jumpsuit and a purple jumpsuit, just kind of really themed up with the chicks. Jess had pink in her hair. And I cannot tell you, in a crowd of thousands of people, how many times we got stopped by people we didn't even know and said, "Hey, you guys are the chicks. You guys are amazing. It's so wonderful to meet you." And so many of them were young women. And the fact that they were enlightened and that we are reaching the audience we meant to, was just like, we were mind blown at the impact we're having in less than a year. So it's going to be very exciting to see where it continues to go and grow, and more lives that we can touch. And, you know, the guests that we bring on the show, like you, Ashley, like you, Angela, and Robin, even, that we have. Yeah, well, yeah.
We need Stacey.
We do need Stacey.
And I'm going to tell you, I told Shasta yesterday, I said, I think Stacey and I could be friends.
She did.
I think we could, as long as you let me speak first.
Okay. Get anytime.
But by having these influential voices on our show and sharing them with the world, and you know, just getting exposure to the right people is really, at the end of the day, I think what's going to help the future generations and help us empower ourselves at the same time.
And I think, and I told the girls too, I told Shasta and Jess also, the chicks too, when they first started this, I said, consistency is going to be your key. Don't like start at it and then stop and start and stop and start. Like, don't miss a week. I don't care what, fill in that space right there. And a lot of times you just don't even see like, oh, what's it going to matter? We don't do it, because you're sitting in this silo. Like, the people aren't in front of you that are listening to you, and you don't know, like, is anybody out there? Is anybody hearing this? Until you get somewhere. And she wants to say that a lot of them were young women, but like when on the last day of the event, we're like walking through as vendors, as vendors are closing down their things, and people are like, oh my God, you guys are the chicks. And it's like some 55-year-old man. And he's like, I've been listening to your show. And so like the impact is not just for that. And so I think that in a world where there's so much garbage out there, that to be able to provide something that is like insightful and adds value and exposes stuff, and, you know, I'm saying just constantly pours the good stories out there, because we hear everybody bitch and gripe all the time. You can be in any Facebook group, and every day someone is griping about something, which is the reason why Shasta and Jess started this, because like every venue they were in, every group they were in, it was some negativity going on. And they're like, it doesn't have to be like this. I know there's great stories out there. What are they? And so them looking for those and digging deep on those and studying who those people are has just been a game changer.
It has.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's the event we did in March was so powerful, because it was so positive. I even had somebody come up to me and say, well, nobody mentioned how men are holding women down in the automotive industry. It's like, because they're not, because they're not, right? Because Ashley's keynote was all about, it changes up to you. It's on you. Yeah. Right. And so I think if we like accept that and embrace that, and we're starting to hear this from other speakers too, like, you can be whatever you want to be. You've got to find a way to lift yourself up and just go make it happen. What's your dream? Now, I know it's not easy for everyone, but it starts with you. No one's going to give you anything. It starts with you. And I know when I met the chicks at Used Car Week. Subi introduced us, Subi Ghosh. And immediately I was drawn to them, you know, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this event. We just decided in November, let's just pull it together. And we just did it. Right. And everybody pulled their weight and did above and beyond. And now you guys are stuck with me. Everybody on this panel, you're stuck with me for life. I don't care, Stacey, you can't run any further than New Brunswick. I'm going to find you.
I look forward to it.
You know, and in mentioning that, you know, nobody mentioned how men were holding people down or whatever, right? And it's like when women will finally realize, and I think I have my top 3 things, you know, not it, none your business, I'm bored. I think the 4th one is, you're not the boss of me. Right? You're not the boss of who I am at the end of the day. Like, my self-esteem is not dependent on your opinion of me. I'm in charge of my self-worth and my self-esteem. And I don't care how many, like, the minute that we put ourselves in that lesser position, mentally we put ourselves there and go, men are holding women down, men are da-da-da. Men can't do anything we don't let them do. End of story. End of story.
Exactly.
Nobody can do anything that you don't let them do.
And I hearken back to Ashley's keynote and where she talked about being unoffendable. Ashley, would you talk about that just for a moment? Because look, we're on such a high right now. I think I want to like wind down the podcast, end it on a high note, and I want you to talk about how, so we talk about kindness. We talk about, you don't know what journey people are on. You don't know what's happened to them in the day. Just be kind. And then you talk about not being unoffendable. Can you speak to that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so that's probably been one of the hardest things for me to like actually rein in and consider myself even like a little bit good at. My emotions can be very explosive very fast. I can go from like fine to not fine real quick. Just my personality type lends to that. We always laugh and say like anger is somewhere like simmering under the surface all the time, even if I'm this like happy, bubbly, positive
she's a brawler.
person.
She's a brawler.
And I could, more unhealthy me could go like something would. I'm also very A to B. So like if you interrupt what I'm in the middle of, like my brain has a really hard time flipping to the next thing and going, okay, hang on a minute. Well, first of all, I've learned to say, hey, can you come back in 10 minutes? Most people are like, oh yeah, 100%. I'll be right back. No problem. Or, hey, I'll text you when I'm available, right? Like I have to finish XYZ. But then also learning to not let those emotions translate over to that next person, right? Like they're just coming to me for help. It really happened. I saw it more in when other people needed something from the office or like, I need this right now, right? Like everybody thinks it's an emergency. I'm like, okay, hang on a minute, but it's actually not. So it's learning to prioritize and go, yeah, 100%, I can help you, or I will have this done for you by the end of the day or whatever, unless it is a true emergency, right? But then also learning that like other people's responses to me, or their emotions or lack of, taking care of those emotions is not my problem. Like I'm going to choose to not let someone make me mad, right? Like you can cut me off in traffic. Okay, bye. That's fine. Whatever. Like I'm going to just choose not. Like I'm going to not let your bad day affect my bad day or make me have a bad day, really. It's that choosing to, I want to say like, it's not like live in a bubble, right? Like, it's not that it's this happy rainbows and sunshine all the time, but it's that I'm going to intentionally choose to not let your actions and your emotions negatively affect me. I didn't cause it. I didn't do it. Now, if I did, I have something to apologize for, and I need to own that, and we need to work that all out. That's different. But I'm not going to let your responses ruin my entire day. And for a lot of years, I let that happen. I would let whatever happened to people around me influence, and I could create my own bad day. And then I went, why am I doing this? This is exhausting. And really going, I'm not going to be offended anymore. And you know what? The freedom that is found in that and the joy that comes from that has been incredible. And can really see now this far down the line growth in that area. And then in turn also teaching that to my girls, teaching that, to Emily, and how do we do that? And what does that look like? And I think sometimes as women, we have to have more control of our emotions than men do to prove that we are not overly emotional and we can actually handle whatever situation is thrown at us, fairly or unfairly.
Exactly. Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah. Ashley, this is my lawyer. The adoption papers are on the way. So look for them.
I'm in.
Okay. Who's got final thoughts? I'm going to wrap it up in a second, but I'll give you guys an opportunity. Final thoughts, Robin, Shasta?
I probably do. I made some notes here on some of the questions that you had down here. One of the things, like one of the questions on here is if you could go back and give advice to your younger self when starting in this industry, what it would be. Well, first of all, I don't remember my younger self because like I told you, I identify as 47. So I'm good with that. But I would tell all women to step into your power and own it. We are not less. just because this in the past has been a male dominated industry, is not because we were being left out. Maybe we didn't want in. And one of the things that we know, we've talked about it several times, that women will do, like if a woman is 90% qualified for a job, but not 100, she won't even apply for it. And a guy who is 56% qualified for it will be mad that you didn't hire him, because by God, he should have got that job. Why don't we apply for everything? Why don't we put ourselves in rooms that make us uncomfortable? Why don't we get into conversations that maybe we don't know everything about? Stop excluding yourself. It's you excluding yourself. Stop doing it.
Love it. Shasta, anything to add?
That puts the icing on the cake. I mean, I always go back to just empower each other. Find somebody, man, woman, whoever, find somebody who can learn from you, and find something you can teach them. Because you don't know if anybody else in their life is doing that for them.
True.
Thank you. Stacey?
I'd love to just wrap up with this whole idea of work-life balance. And I must say, when I saw that, it really stressed me out, because balance kind of implies that everything has equal weight. And I think we need to learn to give ourselves grace, because we're all in situations sometimes when work has to take priority. And then there's also other times when a family member or a child is sick. So just, give yourself some grace, understand, just don't allow something to overpower the rest of your life, so to speak, for long periods of time. And I do absolutely agree. I love that Robin said, 56, what is it, 56%, if a man is there, let's be like them. Let's go for it. Let's just, we're the ones that are holding ourselves back. So break the shackles and let's go.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to give all our listeners a call to action. Number one, you got to listen to the Chicks in Charge podcast.
100%.
100%, right? Okay, so sign up for Chicks in Charge. We'll put all the links to everything in the podcast so you can get to it. Number two, you need a BDC. Do you need a social media agency? Get a hold of Robin at Epic BDC or SCP Agency. She's got you covered. Automotive dealers, you need some training? You need to join a 20 group? Reach out to NCM. Do you know that NCM started the first 20 group ever in 1949? It was a bunch of Ford stores. How did I know that? I have no idea. It wasn't in the script. NCM. Go
and
join
we still have that group to this day.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then, speaking of Kias, if you're in the market for a new Kia, head on down to Roper Kia in Joplin, Missouri. Okay, and by the way, if you need a good inventory management system, end-to-end, VinQ, baby.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Today, right?
There we go.
That's the show today. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us. And let me just say, this was probably one of my best podcasts. And you know why? It's because of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.